guys, welcome back to Strong Successful Male. So for today, I'm going to go over an email that was sent from a subscriber. And this story, guys, this is actually a little different. This story is actually from a young woman. She is 22 years old. She is a police officer, just recently became a cop. She's been following the channel for 6 months, and she learned about me from her dad, who's been a fan of the channel for a year and a half. And she writes in to share the story how her mother, writing in about how her mom ruined her family, obviously more than 10 years ago, by cheating on the dad, amongst many other things. And even though that the mother was awful and ruined the family and all that, still, of course, because of the family courts, she still got full custody of this young gal, got all the alimony, the child support, the house, everything, and the dad got raked over the coals by the family courts. Real nice, huh? And she shares the story about how her mom was, how awful she was, all that, and how she was miserable. And eventually, things that happened eventually get her out of that awful situation. And it's a really good story to hear from anybody that overcomes a hellish situation. But what's interesting is, overwhelmingly, the stories I go over from guys telling about how, there'll be, say, a young guy will talk about how his mom ruined the family, or a husband talking about how his ex-wife ruined the marriage, and on and on. But it's rare that I have a young gal who's 22, write in and say basically how awful some women can be, how they can absolutely ruin marriages, ruin families, and take no blame, no accountability for it. So it's good to hear this. It shows that there's hope for the world here. And this ends on a high note with her, as you're going to see. But her mother, complete trash. So it starts off, she says, hello, SSM. My father, a 43-year-old male, has been a fan of your channel for around a year and a half, and I have for 6 months. My father has been wanting me to share my story for the past 6 months. I've been listening to the stories that you share, and I have to say that they are pretty entertaining. My story is a bit different. I am a girl, and this story shows the point of view of the child in the family destroyed by the mother. Well, thank you for following the channel. By all means, share my work with other young gals like yourself that have an open mind and realize that I'm not the freaking devil, and the things I talk about are helpful, even though some people want to see me burned at the stake. And a shout out to your old man. Thank you, sir, for watching the channel for a year and a half and raising a cool daughter, and appreciate the support. She says here, I grew up with interests that are more masculine and feminine. My dad described me as a tomboy. However, kids in high school insisted that I was a man trapped in a girl's body, which I thought was BS. Anyway, my mom would try to get me into chick flicks, makeup, and getting hair and nails done by my 8-year-old, but my 8-year-old mind was not that interested. Makeup at 8 years old seems a bit early. I would commonly hear from my mom tell my dad that you ruined my daughter because I shared more interest with my dad than my mom. Maybe you shared more interest with your dad is because, quite simply, you recognized from an early age, call it the female intuition, if you will, or I don't know what, that your mom was, well, what you're all going to see. Maybe you just drew close to your dad because you don't want to be anywhere near her. I think that's a strong possibility. My dad was an electrician working for a union with hopes to one day work his way up to contracting, whereas my mom sort of just stayed home all day. So dad took care of everything and mom sat on her fat ass on the couch. One day I came home from school and saw my mom punch my dad in the face twice, knocking him down. This scared me shitless, and I didn't know what to think. A few days later, my dad disappeared. When I asked mom where my dad went, she replied he abandoned us in a snarky attitude. Sure, abandoned. She punched him twice, and the poor young girl at 8 years old saw this. The mom's punching a union guy. I don't know many union guys that can be knocked down by a woman unless they let it happen, because he knows darn well if he would defend himself, which he should be able to do, you all know what would happen. Almost immediately, I began to notice men that I did not recognize just walk into our house and then leave about 30 minutes later. Gee, what was your mom doing for money? This would happen about 3 times per week, and they'd commonly be different guys. This continued on for years, and during this time, my mom would harass about anything and everything. What a great environment for a young child to grow up in, with having a rotating door of more and more dudes coming in and out, and conveniently check the clock. 30 minutes later, Chad or Tyrone's out the door. What a great environment. And mom's this way, and yet mom gets custody of her. You want to talk about a little bullshit. This poor kid. She would expect me to make her food, do her laundry, and do the dishes, and take care of her while she went out with Lord knows who. This is terrible. This poor kid. She would flaunt about all the money that she got from my dad and for child support and alimony. How it was enough to cover everything, but I don't remember her ever spending a dime on me. Shocker. I began to lose weight because I wasn't eating. I became the target of bullying. I had a close friend bring me fruit, cheese, protein bars, and eggs to school for me to smuggle home, since I had next to no food at home that I knew how to make. So the mom's not doing anything. She's getting all that money from child support and alimony and using all for her. Not even enough food in the house, and she has random dudes coming in and out. I mean, you want to talk about, I don't know how, obviously social services isn't involved yet, or this hasn't gotten out. But look at this. Meanwhile, she could have been with a dad, and he would treat her well and all that. It's a shame, but look what happens. This is why things has to change. This is why I share these stories, to bring awareness, whether people like to hear it or not, how the kids can't just automatically go to these mothers, particularly ones that ruin their marriages, because look what happens here. One night when I was 13, I went through my mom's phone while she was showering and found my dad's phone number. I called him on my phone, and to my surprise, he answered. I told him that I missed him and wanted to visit him. He told me he lived in an apartment complex with his girlfriend about 12 miles away. I recognized the name and knew that what he was talking about. I was too immersed with the conversation with my dad that I didn't notice my mom behind me. Uh-oh. She must have known I was talking to my dad, because she took the phone from me and smashed it in front of me without hanging up. Smashed your own phone just to make a point? Your mom is real stable. She yelled at me to get out of her house and stay with Grandma, her mom, a block away while she decides my punishment. Your punishment? You wanted to call your dad? And by the way, you all noticed here that she hasn't seen her dad for years. Well, why do you think that is? Because the courts bought into the mother's bullshit. That evening, while walking to my grandma's, I decided that I didn't want to live like this anymore. I literally ran away from home at the age of 13. I ran past my grandma's house in the direction of the apartment complex my dad mentioned, 12 miles away. That's a long run. I grew tired very quickly and severely misjudged the actual distance of 12 miles on foot. At the time, I wanted to do anything to get away from my mom, and this was just that. I walked the distance at night and stumbled into the apartment complex somewhere around 4 o'clock in the morning. This complex had 6 apartments, so I began knocking on all the doors. The first door I knocked on, my dad opened the door in his underwear, and I just collapsed in his arms. I have to wonder why she didn't use a payphone to call her old man, but I guess she didn't know his new number or something like this. This was 10 years ago, so we're looking at 2012. Obviously, her mom didn't give her any money. She probably had no money to use a payphone. There's a lot of questions here, but this was a very emotional, traumatic situation, so she just took off, and that was that. But anyhow, after sleeping on the couch for a long time, I told him everything and wanted to know why he abandoned me and my mom. See? Mom let her think that dad abandoned her. He told me that my mom cheated on him and kicked him out of his own house. He says he never wanted to stop seeing me, but my mom and the family court would not give him the right to see me. I could not believe that my mom would lie and ruin our family. Well, every dude watching this video, and the 4% of the women that follow me watching this video, are not at all surprised of her actions. But imagine that, all those years, she thought that the dad abandoned her. But the family court actually sided with the mom. And you know the mom put on the best theatrics in the world. You know, probably said that he did things to her, who knows what, to get full custody, and didn't even see the daughter. And she's all the time thinking that he abandoned her. The mom's treating her like shit, so she feels awful. She thinks the father abandoned her, so she feels awful. This type of stuff messes with a kid, major abandonment issues and other things of self-esteem because of her selfish mom. It is amazing the strength she has to move ahead in the world, as you're going to see. I was worried that my mom would look for me and do anything to get me back in her terrible house so she could continue living off my dad's income. Our house was a two-story, 3-bedroom house where my dad lived in a medium-sized 2-bedroom apartment. Remember these things, guys, before you all want to get married and all that and not really get to know your girl. And do your time researching and getting to know her, what she's like, her family, how she resolves problems, how she's with money, how she's with communication, her history, guys. Remember these things right here. The things that could happen. I begged my dad to let me live with him and his girlfriend. That I would be a good child and not let my mom take me back. To my surprise, his girlfriend tried to convince him otherwise, but he took me in and got a lawyer to fight the full custody. I'm sure her dad wanted her, but he probably thought that there was just no way. But I do think there's a certain age for kids when they are old enough to say, I don't want to live with my mom anymore, and have enough good reason for it that I think that can sway a court, I think. I was questioned. I believe the lawyer determined that my mom was unfit to raise me based on my testimony, which exposed her spending habits and bedroom habits, so to speak. I remember crying to the lawyer, please don't take me back, over and over. I lived with my dad until I was 20, when my dad encouraged me to join the police force. I worked hard at it, passed the test, and landed an interview. During the interview, I was asked, would you ever give your mother a ticket? Oh, for sure, 1,000,000 times yes. But what I actually said was, yeah, she speeds a lot too, to avoid sounding vengeful. Now I'm 22 years old with 19 months as a county sheriff under my belt, and I thank my dad for taking me in that morning when I was 13 years old. Judging from the stories you cover and what my childhood consisted of, I really believe that women are way more often than not responsible for the destruction of families. But then they turn around and blame anyone and anything else just to justify their crappy behavior. I don't want to be like that. Thanks for taking the time to read my lengthy story. Well, you're welcome, and I'm glad you wrote in. It's good to a little variety here. Get a story in from a young gal who backs up a lot of things I talk about and we share in the community. Well, you know what? Good job for you. You went through hell. And again, all those years you thought your dad abandoned you and you had that piece of crap mother making you feel like you're worthless. That takes a hell of a lot to rise from that and realize that you were lied to by your mom and that you're not a piece of crap, and to rise. I'm all for self-improvement. I'm all for anyone, I don't care who it is, rising above bad circumstances to become something better. And you did that, and that's awesome. And good for you, Sheriff. And maybe one day you can arrest your fucking mom. And you didn't mention your mom, and I'm sure once you moved in with your dad, that's it. You were dead to her, but that's good. But you said you don't want to be like your mom or be like a lot of these gals in these stories. Well, quite simply, don't be that way. If any silver lining can come out from the bad experience you had with your piece of crap mom is to not be like her. You saw the perfect example of what not to be like. And this can help you as a police officer where you ever encounter domestic problems and things like that, this background you have will help you in how you handle a situation and all that. Maybe you could see a situation that doesn't look too good. You could help with some young kids are taken away from a bad family or something like that. You get my point. So try to use the bad things you went through to actually help you in your career, and you'll be a damn good police officer. And I absolutely wish you all the best, Sheriff. So, all right, guys, that is it for today. Be sure to comment down below and let me know what you think about this. Guys, give her some good positive support and some encouragement in the comments section. She went through a hell of a lot. We wish her the best. And of course, any gal that writes in here and is supportive of the community and the things we talk about is certainly welcome. And again, young lady, Sheriff, tell all your friends about me. Tell all the girlfriends that are cool, or any dudes that you know that are cool. Spread the word, and we can help more and more people out. And also, again, to your father, great job raising a great daughter. Awesome work. And I hope you're doing well too, sir. All right, guys, that is it for today. Be sure to like the video, share with your friends, and subscribe. And I'll catch you next time.